Welcome to the PI show. My name's Harry Nowicki. I'm a personal injury lawyer. I'm here with a colleague, Tony Carbone.
Good evening, viewers. Harry.
Who's also a personal injury lawyer. And we've got a special guest tonight, which is Katrine Green, who specialises in vocational reports for injured people.
That's correct, yeah.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Katrine, yeah.
Been on before, and there's a lot of interest. I think it's an interesting topic. Before we go into discussing rehabilitation and how it affects injured people, what's in the news, Tony?
Well, Harry, there's been a lot of talk of late about cyclists and pushbike riders. The talk's been about the increased fines that they've copped of late. They've gone up to $292 for passing stationary trams and things like that. There's been issues about whether they should be registered, and there's been an alarming increase in the number of deaths. So, Harry, yeah, there's been a lot of talk and conjecture about what should happen with cyclists. Now, look, my view, and I don't want to get them offside because they're a large group out there these days, I think that because of money being spent on making designated lanes, there's safety issues, they're getting fined heavily these days for not wearing helmets and the like. I think they should pay some sort of registration, because apart from the fact that there's quite a few cyclists getting injured, I think that a cyclist striking a pedestrian or someone getting off a tram or getting out of a car could cause quite serious injuries.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think there's a scheme. My understanding is there's a scheme in place to cover cyclists, and it's policies encouraged by the government to get people out of cars into public transport.
But the issue is, do you make it compulsory like we do with motor vehicle registrations?
It should be.
And it doesn't have to be $700 per cycle. It could be, say, $150.
Yeah, it could be
which
modest,
would well and truly cover,
Could be modest registration fee.
Look, it's something we'll be coming back to in the future, I think, Harry, but it's a big issue at the moment.
And dare I say, TAC are responsible for a lot of coverage of cars hitting bicycles.
They are. But the reverse, Harry, is a real concern. I've had clients that have rung me up about being hit by cyclists.
And
what's their coverage?
Yep.
So it works both ways.
Yep. Anyway. Katrina, turning to yourself, the situation is under work cover.
Mm-hmm.
There is a requirement for workers and the employer both to cooperate and try and get people back to work.
That's correct, yes.
So you must see, I think you see a lot of people in that context.
I do.
And also sometimes the issues that the courts have to decide is whether people can or can't work.
That's correct.
Or what their capacity to work, if they can work part-time, full-time, and situations like this. And I think you've provided us with some examples of cases that you've studied, but also you've varied a few of the facts. But I think they just raise all the interesting issues that we as lawyers have to deal with, doctors have to deal with, and the courts have to deal with. And you're in part of that process where I think some of your reports are tendered as expert evidence.
That's
correct. Before we get on to that, what's that? Is that not the first in the Old and New Testament, is it?
No, it's not. It's the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations. And in this book, there's a whole range of generic job descriptions which are used for the purposes of defining the actual core duties of each occupation and the qualifications and any specific training that's required for those occupations.
So it's a standardised...
It's a standardised document.
So it's referred to by the courts, and the courts rely on that document. So that's why you've got to use it as well.
That's correct, yes.
So if you've got like a camera operator, as we have today, there'd be a job description of requirements of a camera operator.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. The first case we've got, I think, is a 50-year-old female.
That's
So we're doing work cover at the moment.
We're doing work accidents.
Yeah, work accidents.
And she was a personal care attendant. She fell at work.
That's correct.
And had a back surgery. Now, I think you've seen this person 2 years after the accident.
That's correct, yes.
So you'd expect the back surgery to have stabilised?
Well, in a lot of instances, it may have, but not necessarily. But with this particular case, that was the case. The back injury had stabilised.
And you've got to then assess, I think, in your reports, you've got to assess firstly what their presenting symptoms are.
Yeah.
So just tell us, I mean, how long would you spend with a person typically?
Well, on average, an hour to an hour and a half for the interview, and then I have to do a follow-up report for the legal firm that's referred that
And
client
Katrine, what
to
are you
me.
armed with when you've seen this particular injured person? What have you got in front of you? What other information have you got?
Well, I do receive medical reports from the lawyer. The medical reports that the lawyers have obtained, but I actually try not to read those until after I've seen the injured person.
So it doesn't-
But I also receive affidavits, and I do read those before I see the injured person.
Do you ever get sent surveillance material or things like that?
Pardon?
Surveillance material?
Occasionally I might get surveillance material, but I'm very wary of surveillance material because it's usually 1 or 2 minutes or 3 minutes of someone's actions and behaviours, whereas the injury spans between 6 months or 2 years. And I just think you have to be very careful in the way you interpret surveillance material.
I think that's a fair comment. I think, you know, in court, it often is put into that context where you might have a minute or 30 seconds of someone's life over a period of perhaps 5 years, and the courts are asked to draw what's called adverse inferences from that, and it can be terribly unfair. I think that's a fair comment. But getting back to this person, she's had back injury. You've seen her after 2 years.
That's correct, yeah.
You've then got to ask her about the her presenting symptoms, what pain and what difficulties she has.
Yeah, what her current symptoms are, and also what she understands her physical tolerances to be. Now, what physical tolerances are is how long she may be able to sit for, stand for, walk for, whether she can bend, what's her driving capacity, things like that. And that gives me an idea of how she may be able to physically perform in the workforce, but it also allows me to compare what the injured worker says, in this particular case, this 50-year-old female, with what the doctors may say. And I look to see if there's consistency or if there's differences.
Katrine, we're going to have to go to a sponsors break, so we'll
Okay.
come back and... So, look, viewers, don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be back very, very shortly. Thank you.